Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be in this beautiful, beautiful home, full of art and just so much. First of all, I want you to tell me about your time when you became governor. That was such great choice when you and Salman became governor, because Salman really politically, I think he was really one of our smartest politicians. And when the two of you together, I think it was a great choice. And I've been to the governor's house while you both were there, and I remember you telling me things, but it was not like this, one-on-one. So just tell me about those days that you were there as governor, and that beautiful building and beautiful iconic building in Lahore that you had the pleasure of becoming the governor and living in it. Tell us, what did you do with it?
It came out of, I thought, nowhere. I'm not sure where when they thought of choosing him as governor, but we were actually in Sharm el Sheikh and we were holidaying, and he got a call from President Zardari that come back because I'm making you governor of Punjab. So of course he rushed back, and a couple of weeks later he was sworn in. And when he was sworn in and he was standing there, I remember he said to me, I'm going to open up this place. I'm going to open it for people. I want everyone to enjoy this. It shouldn't be a little island in the middle of Lahore. So he had a lot of vision. He had a lot of plans. He wanted the People's Party to feel, because they had been, sort of pretty much wiped out of Lahore electorally. One wasn't being able to win elections and things, but he wanted them to have a stronghold in Lahore, and he spent the next 2.5 years making sure that politically there was a spot for them where they could come, they could air their grievances, they could ask for help, they could meet people. We had heads of state, we had Hillary Clinton come, we had Chinese ambassadors, we had many ambassadors. But he also opened it up to a lot of music, to poetry competitions, to all the educational institutions in Lahore used to bring children to see the governor's house. I cannot tell you how many. I always came to meet the children. I just can't tell you how many children came. They met the governor.
How many years were you there?
2.5. And so it was. I'm going to look at it as a little bit of a holiday. I mean, I don't know.
No, it was a great privilege.
He worked very hard.
It was a privilege.
It was a privilege
to be able to got the opportunity to do something very important.
Yes, he did. Like he was. I'll give you a small example. He was governor of the board. Your chairman of the board of HSN, and had he not died, he was very determined to open a girls' school in HSN College.
Really?
And Fakir Jazuddin was the principal. He was totally on board with Salman, and they were working towards that. And he was very keen, because he said to me that I am Chancellor of 17 universities in Punjab, and the girls take all the prizes. He said, I have yet to see such amazing young girls. All the gold medalists were girls. He said it's amazing, and they deserve this opportunity. And because he was not an HSonian and he was always in awe of HSN, he said, open up HSN also so that was one of his great plans, was to have a girls' school in HSN, and I wish he had succeeded in.
Oh, it's not only HSN. I think so much has to be done for education.
Yeah.
Because we all grew up in the 60s,
yes,
and education it could have been better, but it was fine. All of us, went to convent schools, and suddenly closing all that down and changing the culture. Well, governments do it, but I've never understood why.
Yes, we grew up in a much more liberal
Totally.
Pakistan. We grew up with the convents
and an education which prepared us to face
quality.
both the worlds.
It was a quality education we got, whether English or Urdu. So he was very conscious of that, and he used to always start off his speech by saying that I was a bit of a skiver, I was not academically sound, but look at where I've reached. I'm the governor, so all of you can do the same. And he was very encouraging. He loved the youth, and he loved to reach out to the youth, and he liked to. I feel he made a great contribution there. So I think we perhaps
Also, I think he was a man who could think big,
he had a lot of
and I don't think he was threatened by people's intellect.
no. In fact, people were threatened by his intellect.
Yes.
His wit, which Nusi and I were both victims of, but his wit and his intellect was supreme. Anyway, I think we were viewed often as a very modern couple in the Governor House. We were not traditional enough. Although he had Farida Khanum come and sing his father's poetry. He did a lot of mushairas.
Tell me about your father-in-law, and tell me about Faiz Ahmed Faiz.
Sadly, Faiz Ahmed Faiz died shortly after I was married. But he and Salman shared a very deep bond, and they were very close, especially in Salman's formative years, his teenage years. I think Salman was greatly influenced by his uncle. And Auntie Alice was the most loving.
Auntie Mrs. Faiz Ahmed Faiz and your mother-in-law were sisters.
They were sisters, yes. And his father died when he was 6. I mean, I only know the stories about his father.
Oh, really?
I don't know anything else about, other than his poetry, that he was principal of college, school. Other than that, I don't know. I never knew when he died, a very young man. He was in his 40s when he died. So, which is very sad because, again, a man, of extremely intelligent man. And, of course, I won't say that here. So Salman had a lot of vision and was definitely viewed as very modern because he had no patience with, with sort of culture that didn't make sense, or he was very cultural, but he couldn't abide by, the stupidity of ye dupatta is time pure aisa ye karo, and he just wouldn't go down that street. So he was all
Dupatta culture, I don't know where it suddenly dawned on
you
us.
can't wear saris to official thing. He used to say, just do what you like, just make sure it's okay, that's all. And so, I think we brought a little bit of a breath of fresh air into the Governor
Absolutely.
House. And we were not scared to be who we were. We refused to cheat. And Salman was very blunt and outspoken and encouraged all of us to be like that too.
Yeah.
But the only thing was, I think we were one of the only ones who never lived there. We used it. His office was there. I kept clothes there because I would suddenly, in the middle of something, get a call, okay, there's an ambassador coming, you have to come immediately because he's coming with his wife, and I had to rush and get ready. So yeah, but we never lived there. We did a lot of entertaining and had a lot of guests come, and it's the first port of call. But I remember when Hillary Clinton came and they swept the thing. So she went.
Where was she staying?
She didn't stay long. She left in the night. But she came to us. She landed. We were at the airport. They took her to some school and then brought her to the Governor House. She had asked specifically. It was very interesting. She said, she told Salman, I want to meet 25 of your top businessmen. I want to talk to them. So we had arranged a big round table, like a U, and Salman, Hillary, and I were sitting there. And and you had all the top businessmen. Some had flown in from Karachi, from Lahore, and she knew her facts, she knew her figures. She talked down to them. She said, put away your begging bowl. Go retrieve your taxes, do this, do that. She gave them a talking to. But she was a real character. She came and Salman was waiting downstairs, and she went running up the stairs and he going, hello, I'm the governor, come back. So she came running down again to meet him. It was hilarious. So immediately they were disarmed, and then he showed her a little bit around the place, and she obviously enjoyed that. But then her personality changed, And I remember we wanted a photograph, and with her, my kids were standing with me. And they said, no, between this room and this room, we're not sure about the security. She's got to be taken immediately. So as she came out, I said, oh, would you mind very much? My kids really want a photograph with you. And she goes, oh, I love family photographs. Come on, let's get a picture taken. So there went the protocol, there went all the whatever security. But so we were viewed as a bit too.
Oh yes, and it's not a question of being just viewed, it's a fact. that I mean that you and anybody who came from the West, you're totally comfortable. You're comfortable.
Yeah.
That is how it should
That's
be.
how it should be.
And sometimes I question it myself that
Yeah.
a lot of our leaders who themselves are educated and they understand the importance of speaking English or French. That those things are so important for a leader.
Or being able to relate to their ideas
Yeah.
and to move.
And then they want to change everything around. I've never understood what happened. But anyway, a lot of these leaders have started doing it now.
Yeah.
I think it is also not them. I mean, they don't think like that,
Yeah.
but they feel that is the kind of politics they want to run.
Yeah.
So
sadly, but anyway, you know the rest is history.
No. Yeah. You and Salman were absolutely. I mean, those are the kind of people that one really wants to see in government, who are comfortable and who want to change, make the culture
To encourage
acceptable
arts.
to the
Yes.
world.
To encourage arts and crafts.
At one time, when our government services, when our officers went abroad, they were totally comfortable.
Yeah.
But today, a lot of people have struggled a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and those are all because we're trying to change the schooling, we're trying to change. So, whatever there was, I wish they'd just let it continue.
Yes.
And focused on other things
Exactly.
rather than go and dabble into things which is not necessary.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
one of the sweetest things Silvan did was, as soon as he was sworn in, first he went to Nodero, where
Yeah.
Benazir's home
Yeah.
is, and we had lunch there with the president, and we went to Benazir's mausoleum and paid our respects. And the next day we went to Multan, we flew, and then we took a helicopter to where Mukhtara Mai.
right, yeah.
So the cars.
Just remind me about Mukhtara Mai.
Tara Mai was a woman from a village in the heart of Punjab, near Multan, and a 25-minute helicopter ride from Multan. And it was like you're in a desert, okay? And she was brutally raped
Yeah.
by 7 or 8 men, and it was a horrible thing. She went through a terrible time. She's written a book. She got no support, and he went to her school, and this is 2008, so it's a very long time ago. And he pledged money to help her to expand her school, and then he told her, it was so sweet. He told her. He spoke, she spoke, and then he told her, he said, my young daughter is here, and my Shehbanu was just 17 or 18, and he said, I want you to put your hand on her head because I want her to be brave like you. And there wasn't a person there who wasn't crying.
Yeah.
It was so touching, it was so sweet, it was very spontaneous. I didn't expect Salman to say that, but that's what he loved. He respected people
Yes.
who had the guts to do things.
Yeah.
And she had the guts. She got money, she got funding.
Not with the guts, but look
And
what she
put
went
up a
through.
School, and she put up a craft center, and she to encourage women from the village to come, drop their kids in the school and to learn something themselves.
And before we change the topic, just tell me, what did you do with the governor's house itself? Did you make any
I made a lot
change
of
in the
changes.
structure?
First of all, I cleaned it up.
Yeah.
It was a very mammoth task. And second of all, no changes in the structures, just like, bringing it back to its glory a little bit, finding beautiful paintings and things and having them displayed properly. And
So they were all in the basement.
they were all in the basement, and there's a beautiful library in the back, and I just reupholstered the sofas and made it into this fabulous room. It was a fabulous room, but it was treated as a little back office, and so just cleaned it, exposed the books. The books were all shelved up and whatever. Exposed the books, created this atmosphere, just put some lamps and upholstered sofas, and it became the most
And apparently you changed a lot of the books and things there.
no, the books were there, but I changed the upholstery.
And then
So
yourself,
cleaned it.
after that, your son was kidnapped. I mean,
A few months.
a few months.
later.
And that became an international story.
Yeah.
And do so many things together. And then I come back and then I see you. I've never seen you change. Your facial expressions remain the same. everything about you is remain so calm, in control, to such extreme situations in your life. And throughout, I mean, physically and every day, so you carried on. I saw you socially everywhere, and you know, and I used to keep thinking, how is she like this? So, and you know, I never get the time, never had the opportunity to really sit one-on-one with you and talk. But it's very important you have to tell me this. I was very worried about how it would see you, but you walked in as if, you know, we have to manage it.
I think I saw my two children drowning a little bit. You know, it was very difficult for them, and there were a lot of losses, and it was difficult to get them to focus. And so I told them, we have a lot of work to do. We have to steady our businesses. Salman was the person who was given the loan. Salman was the person who people were dealing with. Everybody wanted to pull out. Salman was gone, and they didn't know who I was. And my kids were quite young then, so I sort of took over. But I told my children, I said, he's going to come back. I know it. He's going to come back, and we have to be strong. We have to stay strong. So
this now you talk about your son.
My son's
So just give
so he was
that.
picked up in broad daylight in Gulberg.
And where? Just near the house?
No, near the office.
Near the
off
office.
the main MM Alam Road. It's a very big financial hub, you know, shops, everything there. And it was around 9 in the morning, and he was followed from our main road to work. And just one of those days, he didn't take the guard with him. Not that the guard could have done anything, but it's another whole story. But he was picked up at that time, and he was gone. And then he was gone for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
They got him out of Lahore, and despite our
And all of us were absolutely, I mean, we just couldn't understand it. How could you just keep yourself so calm through that entire period? Do you know from time to time?
I don't know if I was calm, but
No, but whatever
I
you're
know
going on
that-
inside, you didn't look, you know, I mean, there was no sign of any anxiety or, I don't know.
I think I felt that my children keep looking at me, and then my brother came and he moved to Lahore. So he was a great source of support and literally my backbone. My sister was always there. She, poor thing, carried a lot of burdens because there were things that I did not tell anyone of the kidnappers' calls and their demands. I used to just tell my sister because it was very difficult. You couldn't share it. I didn't know if Shahbaz wanted his story out. I didn't know whether I didn't know he was going to write a book. But at that time, I felt that it's so personal. It should be his choice. So I kept things very quiet. And I just kept telling my children, you have to be strong. Oh, there's only one victim here, and that's Shahbaz. We are not victims. We are free. We can come and go as we please. We are working. We can travel. We are in our home. We are free. So I think that message got through, and my kids were incredible. So we were a team.
Yeah, even then it's easier said than done. That's for sure.
I'm glad it's.
But no, but it's extraordinary that to be able to, you know, manage your life and wait for it to happen in 4 years is not.
No, it was a very
It was a long wait.
1.5 years.
And yeah.
Now I'll make you laugh. So I was sitting in a parlor. I was taken off getting the phone calls, and anyway, there had been no news for about almost 6 months, and I was really getting frantic, not knowing where he was. Maybe security forces knew that he was in Afghanistan, but I didn't know whether he was dead or alive. Nobody had any contact because actually he was in a prison in Afghanistan. But my phone rings. Now, I'm not supposed to take these calls, so I looked at the numbers, a very odd number, so I didn't answer it. Second and third time. On the fourth ring, and one after the other, I said, no, I don't know, something's happened to one of my children, I have to take this call. I pick up and he says, Ammi! And I said, and now at the same time, I sort of pretending, disguising my voice, said, gone? And he said, Ammi! And I said, Shahbaz. And he says, no, it's me. And I've escaped and whatever. And I just, I couldn't believe it. And I'm sitting there with dyeing my hair.
And the hairdresser.
And I jumped up and ran out on the road because I didn't want anyone to hear. Then we activated things. I called up, there was a wonderful general. He had been very helpful throughout, and he had been posted to Balochistan. And I remember when he was going, I said, if you go, I will not get information anymore. And he said, no, madam, you will, and whatever. I just dialed his number. Now he would never, he was always away, and he would return the call late at night. He said, I was walking into my house and I put my phone down and your name was flashing. So he picked it up and I said, oh my God, you know the... And I said, and now I couldn't remember the name of the place Shahbaz was in. So he was prompting me and we remembered Kuch Luck, and he said, it's going to take an hour. I said, you can't, you don't have an hour. My son is saying, this place is teeming with terrorists. If they find out who I am, they will kill me. I'm standing out like a sore thumb. So I called him back on that phone, and the guy was speaking, and he borrowed somebody's phone to call. Sure enough, they got there in 15 minutes and they found him. The rest was...
But amazing, how did they know where to locate him?
There is only, it's a strip and there is only one hotel there. So he was at that hotel, and he was getting so anxious. I told him, eat. He said, I've eaten. I said, go to the bathroom. He said, I've gone twice. So I said, okay, then go outside and walk a little bit up and down. So he was walking outside and he saw the cars.
So how did he get to the hotel? They left him there?
That's another whole long story of how he got there. It took him 7 days from when he was released from prison. And the interesting thing is, and it has no connection to each other, but it happened, was the morning that Qadri who murdered Salman was hanged, was the same morning at Fajr that Shahbaz was released from prison. And he was told that, and it was cold, there was snow everywhere, he was ill-equipped for the snow, but he was told you have to walk across that mountain top there, see the little lights of the village, and you have to go there, and there are 6 people leaving for Pakistan, and they will take you on the back of their motorbike. And so then he walked, they were waiting for him. I said, nobody spoke. And he got on the back of the motorcycle, and it took them 7 days. He said, you know, Ammi, you think that they're roads, but we went on Pakhtadis. We went on the little narrow, you know, the stony, pebbly roads and whatnot. So he said it was really crazy. And then they crossed the border, and he did not have a Muhajir card. So they said, where's your Muhajir card? And he said, oh, I didn't know what a Muhajir card was. He said, everything of mine is lost. So they said, look, we'll get into a lot of trouble. So you're a good chap, we're going to leave you here. And he said, you know, Amma, I was alone and free for the first time in my life in 4.5 years. I lay on the road, in the middle of the road, and I just kept shouting my name. And it felt so nice because he said I had been called everything but by my name for 4.5 years. And then he got up and he found a rickshaw driver, I think, or a taxi that took him to Kuch Luck. And then he called.
And then I remember he came on that private plane.
Well, we organized a private plane, his friends did, but they said, no, you can't fly to Quetta at night. So then he came the next day, the army sent him. So that
amazing story. But really through it all, it was your resilience and your courage is absolutely extraordinary.
I think he was,
his and Salman's story is separate. But just you who's sitting there and going through it all, losing Salman, and then this and the uncertainty for 4 years. But you know, I mean, if you have that kind of courage in you, it's a blessing. Because in life, so many things can happen. But if you can, you know, and then you were like, he got back.
I was very lucky. It was a happy ending.
Yeah, a happy ending.
He was very stoic. And Salman used to always say, this is the most stoic of my children.
Yeah.
And he was right. Very stoic, very brave, no trauma. You know, he came back and
you were happy. And anyway, I'm going to have a cup of tea. I've got all this lovely food. That's what all it's about. Food, friends, great talk, beautiful.
Lovely to have